Hey everybody, I'm Ozzy, and today we're going to talk about the Scroll Airdrop and how to farm it. If you're new to the channel, we're here to talk all about how to kill it in the 2024 and 2025 crypto bull run. We're going to be talking about how to make the most money possible through airdrops and all of these different kinds of strategies. If you like that kind of content, please drop a like, a subscribe, and a share. It really makes a huge difference for me in the channel. And let's get into it. I'm feeling a lot better this week, and we'll be able to get a full tutorial and it edited and out for you all. So I'm super excited about that. If you haven't checked out some of our other tutorials, I think there's plenty of great tutorials already out there on the channel, and some of the videos that I put out that aren't tutorials also definitely worth watching. The talk about NFTs that I did on Friday, super interesting. A lot of interesting insight, especially if you've got a lot of money but don't necessarily have the time. On top of that, if you look at some of my other strategies about portfolio management, I think that will also give you some great ideas for this bull run. Now let's get into Scroll. What is Scroll? Scroll is an L2, so a layer 2 that's building on top of Ethereum, hoping to help scale Ethereum. We've talked a little bit about L2s when we talked about Dimension. They're aiming to help ZK rollups, which are L2s, be deployed for app-based chains, and we staked some DYM that we received from staking TI Celestia. That's a little bit about L2s. L2s are all about reducing the fees that users have to pay on Ethereum, all about moving transactions onto these L2s. We've had StarkNet just do an airdrop. They were a big L2. From what I've heard, not very exciting. Some people did make some good money, but their criteria are pretty restrictive, and it's dumped pretty hard from launch. Valuation was pretty off from everything that I heard, and from what I saw, I got to finally claim my alt layer airdrop for Celestia staking. So if you also were staking Celestia and were eligible for the alt layer airdrop, go claim that. I got 150 or so. So a nice little boost to the wallet. The great thing about these L2s is generally they're pretty cheap to farm. The bad thing is you generally have to bridge at least once from ETH. So there's some expensive ETH fees. Layer 2s are these chains that use Ethereum for security and do all of their transactions paid in ETH, but are able to do a higher number of transactions per second and able to exist and combine all these transactions to then send them to ETH. This way, it's a lot less expensive to do transactions on their chain. Usually, you're talking about $1 or less in terms of fees compared to often $5 or more on Ethereum. And with these L2s, often those fees are going down over time, whereas Ethereum, the fees tend to be going up. Now, when can we expect the Scroll airdrop? How much time do we have? Scroll and its airdrop is something that I'd be expecting in Q3 or Q4 of 2024. So you've still got a lot of time, which allows you to help hit that 3, 6, or 9 month target in terms of daily active. This is super important and a great way to help boost your overall rewards by earning and doing transactions over multiple months. By hitting the longest potential age of your wallet that you will actually earn a lot more points. As someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of money, that is a great way if you can't hit those volume targets to help maximize your airdrop by maximizing the age of your wallet and the number of distinct months. The other thing with Scroll and kind of how big of that airdrop that we can see, I'm expecting the valuation to be somewhere around 3 billion. So if we follow the Arbitrum model, we probably could be seeing airdrops of, I think on the low end, if you hit at least 3 key criteria. So 1, using the native bridge, 1, doing at least 10 transactions, and 3, doing transactions over 2 distinct months, then you are probably at least going to be looking at about $500. you might be able to get more, hitting over 100 transactions, bridge doing total transaction volume of at least 10,000, bridge volume of 10,000. All of these are different ways that you could earn quite a bit more in your airdrop. Definitely keep an eye on that. The big thing that we'll see in this tutorial, the fee for bridging on the Scroll native bridge right now is quite expensive. It's like $40 or $50. It's not the best, but they have announced that they are going to be rolling out a new update soon, which will help reduce those fees. So you could also use something like Layer Swap or Rhino Finance to bridge on for this first time, so that you can start building up those distinct months. And then once the new update comes out, approximately March 7th, then you could use the native bridge and generate one of those native bridge transactions. I would definitely always recommend doing the native bridge at least once. Now, once you've got your funds onto Scroll, your best strategy is to just start interacting with different protocols. There aren't a million protocols on Scroll yet. Great thing about being early. So to get into the tutorial, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to scroll.io/bridge. Link in the description as always. Then when we get there, we're going to choose how much ETH you want to deposit. In this case, I'm depositing roughly $1,000. You'll see gas fees are about $36 right now. You can deposit what you want. You could also use Layer Swap if you don't want to use the native bridge, but I like using the native bridge, at least for a few transactions, especially my first. The one thing with using the native bridge, it will take about half an hour for the fees to get all the way through. So for your ETH funds to end up on Scroll, you will have to wait on that to happen. You can click on transaction history and it will show you how long. In my case, it only ended up taking about 15 minutes. So I waited that 15 minutes and then I went on to Ecosystem. When you look at Ecosystem, this is some of the dApps that are already on Scroll. As I said, it's very early days for Scroll still, so a perfect time to start building that volume. One of the dApps that isn't there, but that I know exists on Scroll is Layer.Bank. They're a lending and borrowing platform that I really like. I trust. I use them for Linea. I also have used them on Manta, and I'm going to take some of that $1,000 worth of ETH, and I'm going to lend it on Layer.Bank. In my case, I'm also going to use looping, which really all it does is it generates a little bit of additional volume with the same amount of money. In this case, I'm going to go about $150 worth of ETH, so 0.05 that I'm looping. And when I loop that, I'm going to only loop it about twice. Right now, looping isn't super lucrative on Layer.Bank just because the amount of deposits and borrows are pretty equal. Once I prove that with my wallet, I end up going to SyncSwap. I like SyncSwap. I've used it for other airdrops, including CK Sync, and it could also potentially do an airdrop in the future. I'm going to swap out $300 worth of ETH for C, and then I'm going to go deposit that in their ETH USDC liquidity pool. It's pretty easy. You go up to pool, you enter how much you want to deposit. So I put 150 USDC, and then I said put it in equal proportions, and then approve the transactions with my wallet. Once it's all been submitted and approved, I went to look and see what other things are in the ecosystem and ended up choosing Izumi. They're another DEX. They're on a whole slew of different blockchains, including Linea and Scroll. And I'm going to deposit the rest of my USDC and ETH liquidity here. They've got different fee tiers. I ended up going with 0.3%. It felt like the safest option. And so I deposited it in equal portions, so $149.50 of USDC and 0.053 ETH. once I added that liquidity, takes a little bit of time to deposit, but I went to go check out some other options in the ecosystem, and one of them, at least the only one that I know of for perps right now, is Sin Futures. You have to use your VPN for it, and so I didn't end up using it. I can't record with my VPN on, but I did end up going to RhinoFi and use their scroll tracker to check my score. I've done a lot more transactions here, 58, so I'm in the top 10% for wallets at the moment. But even if you're not in the top 10%, you can mint an NFT through there, and so then that's another unique transaction. It'll take a little bit of time to mint the NFT, but it's a Scroll, a RhinoFi NFT, and if you potentially have done more transactions at this point, you can also potentially mint the exclusive one for a score in the top 30%. The other transaction that I'm going to do is with the Scroll naming service. I hadn't minted my own name yet, so AUSSIERIKLEY, the name of the channel, .scroll, and I ended up registering this for 2 periods. Cost 0.0062 ETH, plus a little bit of gas fees are really cheap, so that generated some more transactions before I ended up going to Symbiosis. I did one last swap with Symbiosis, transferring some ETH to USDC. Really, all I'm doing here is trying to generate transactions and transaction volume. This isn't the only time that I'll interact with Scroll. You saw I've already got about 58 transactions. I will go and do these types of transactions, withdraw my liquidity, swap all the way back to maybe buy an NFT about once a week. And doing this over a long time period with multiple wallets and on a weekly basis is the best way to earn the most rewards for your money. It's not a flawless plan. There's still risks involved. It's an airdrop, but I think that this is a strong strategy. What I would do if I were you is once a week, one week you set up liquidity, you do all those swaps, and then the next week you pull all that liquidity, unswap it, swap it back to ETH, and maybe do a couple of maybe perps transactions, and then let it sit till the next week. And then you redeposit, and so on and so forth. So then you're generating a lot of transaction volume. You can also then bridge on and off on weeks maybe that you're just sitting in ETH, bridge off, go farm ZK Sync or Linea or another airdrop with that ETH, and then bridge back on either with the native bridge when it's cheaper, or with Layer Swap or Orbiter or even RhinoFi for cheap but growing transactions. Again, don't do this all in a day. Doing it all in a day is not going to yield the best results. You really want to spread this out over at least 2 months, but 3 months is even better. And then getting to that 6-month mark in terms of overall wallet age and activity. If you look at other cool things that you can do, bridging with Stargate in and out is a great way to also earn layer 0 points. Best done with USDC. Check out our layer 0 guide, also available on the channel. Again, we'll probably come out with an update for Scroll. Scroll is still very early on in their development timeline, and so we're not seeing a ton of tools out there yet to farm Scroll. But by doing swaps across all of these different platforms and lending and borrowing with Layer Bank and Aave, you can easily hit all of the key metrics that you'll need to earn a big airdrop with Scroll. Starting early on these airdrops is one of the best ways to earn a massive multiplier on your airdrop points and earn the largest airdrop possible. I'm Aussie, and I want to thank you for following today's guide. If you've got any questions, don't forget to check out my free community on Discord. I'm happy to answer any of your questions there or in the comments below. The community has a ton of great people sharing alpha, reminding people to claim their airdrop, also just sharing quests and tips and tricks that they find when farming airdrops. That being said, I appreciate everybody watching, and I hope to see you next time.